Hello again, 240. To conclude, Pete and Roone, as you'll recall, ABC's audacious bid, however, did indicate that the network intended to become a major player in sports television. Its new vice president, Roone Arledge, brought to his job imagination, energy, and a willingness to take a chance. And he joined ABC in 1960. Shortly after, and there's a picture of Mr. Arledge from dailysports.com, spanning the globe, probably in the Alps in Europe. And when he came in, the network had signed on to broadcast Saturday college football game of the week, in addition to the AFL games. And Arledge brought to his position the conviction that if he offered casual viewers entertainment and drama that went beyond the game itself, they would tune in. And within a few years, Arledge had revolutionized the way television covered sporting events. What we set out to do was to get the audience involved emotionally. If they don't give a damn about the game, they still might enjoy the program. And Arledge instructed his college crews to capture not just the action on the field, but the total atmosphere within the stadium. Special microphones were placed on the field to pick up the thud of players smacking into each other. Cranes provided overhead shots, and zoom cameras caught the action up close. His producers also blended in interviews with coaches, sounds of marching bands, and close-up shots of anguished coaches prowling the sidelines. He tossed in images of attractive co-eds in the grandstands. ABC spanning the globe. And cheerleaders with their acrobatic routines and baton twirlers prancing in front of the band, seeking to maximize the impact of color television, which comes in the mid-1960s. Arledge gave his audiences a sense of the colorful atmosphere within college stadiums, offset by sounds of players colliding with each other. Especially popular was the introduction of slow motion and instant replay that made it possible for viewers to see crucial plays over and over again. Arledge thus presented football not just as a game, but also as a spectacle full of excitement and drama. Ratings soared, and so did Roone Arledge's career. And this is nothing new, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Roman circus. This is the Colosseum. Arledge also launched his weekend sports anthology, Wide World of Sports. And there's the famous ABC Wide World of Sports logo. That's from eBay.com. And using catchy phraseology that was suggested by announcer Jim McKay, ABC spanned the globe to bring viewers the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And there's the late, great sports journalist Jim McKay, who passed away in June of 2008 at the age of 86. And as McKay later recalled, and that picture was from theodoresworld.net, and as McKay later recalled, this was not born out of a creative explosion. It was, as the old saying goes, born of necessity. Operating on a limited budget, Arledge found unique and inexpensive ways to fill those time slots. He seldom presented live events, instead utilizing the recent innovation of videotape to condense the action. Thus, his producers compressed a 26-mile marathon into a few minutes of viewing time, showing the fresh pack of runners taking off from the starting line, their agonized faces as they slogged up a hill or struggled to keep going when hitting the wall at the 20-mile mark. I remember that. And finally, the exhausted leaders attempting to sprint to the finish line after more than 2 hours of grueling effort. As ABC cleverly said, the shows were shot live on tape. ABC crews combed the globe in search of anything remotely connected with sports that might prove entertaining to American audiences and inexpensive to show. In its first year, Wide World of Sports reported on rodeos from small towns in the West, track meets in Iowa, tennis in Mexico, soccer from London, England, auto racing from Le Mans, France, curling from Canada, hydroplane boat racing from Seattle, mountain climbing in the Alps, and surfing from Maui, Hawaii. And lead announcer McKay who usually did the voiceover in a New York studio after film crews sent in their footage, revealed a special talent for making even the most inconsequential event seem interesting by emphasizing underlying storylines, colorful personalities, danger to the contestants, feuds between competitors, and the exotic location in which the event was held. Though initially Wide World tended to cover legitimate, if obscure, sports, over the years, the program tended to stretch things a little, and then some. The program's potpourri eventually included highlight, badminton, wrist wrestling, log rolling, cat shows, dog shows, horse shows, truck pulls, horse polo, water skiing, figure skating, bobsledding, chess, Boris Spassky, Bobby Fischer, ski races, bicycle races, motorcycle races, stock car races, marathon races, and dog sled races, and the list goes on and on. At times, the show went over the top with automobile demolition derbies, a climbing race up the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France, and my favorite, cliff divers plummeting several hundred feet into the Pacific Ocean at Acapulco, and high wire walks without a safety net. And the most extreme moment came on New Year's Day in 1968 when Daredevil Robert Craig Evel Knievel attempted to jump the bubbling water fountain in front of Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas on a motorcycle. He landed in a heap, suffering a broken spine, a crushed pelvis, but he appeared on Wide World 15 more times doing weird and dangerous things, such as his attempt to rocket cycle over the Snake River Canyon in Idaho. And he pulled his chute very quickly after launching that one. And come on, ladies and gentlemen, who didn't have that rocket cycle when you were a kid? Come on, you had that toy. Nick Lasky had it. And this was always to high ratings. And that was sufficient justification. And there's Evel on his Harley going over the fountains, and that landing did not go well. A big favorite at Wide World of Sports. But when Arledge arrived at ABC, he plunged immediately into the bitter squabble between the NFL and the newly created American Football League. In its first year, the upstart league suffered low attendance, and its 8 teams losing an estimated $3 million, despite the ABC contract. And contrary to broadcasts of college games, where pictures of fans in grandstands were common fare, ABC's cameramen were instructed to follow the AFL games without showing the embarrassing expanse of empty seats. In 1963, multimillionaire David "Sonny" Werblin purchased the New York Titans for $1 million, and this began to change the fate of the league. He hired former Baltimore Colts coach Weeb Ewbank to lead the renamed New York Jets, and he moved the home games to the recently opened Shea Stadium, which had been constructed for part of the events of the New York's World Fair of 1964. And he stunned the sports world when he signed University of Alabama quarterback Joe Namath to a $420,000 3-year contract in 1965, and that allegedly took place under the goalpost at the conclusion of the Texas-Alabama Orange Bowl game in January 1965. With Namath tossing passes and enjoying his life as a Broadway celebrity, Jets attendance jumped from 22,000 per game to over 40,000. The AFL had gained instant credibility, but the Namath contract set off a bidding war that escalated players' salaries. In 1964, the AFL signed a 5-year, $42 million contract with NBC, more than 5 times what it received from ABC. Its survival was now assured. With the AFL not going away, Pete Rozelle engaged in a series of secret meetings with AFL leaders that produced a merger agreement. Rozelle would become the commissioner of a greatly expanded National Football League, and a single draft would eliminate the bidding for players. Not only did the NFL agree to merge with all 10 AFL franchises, but Rozelle also agreed to put an expansion franchise in New Orleans as a condition of gaining the critical support of Senator Russell Long and Congressman Hale Boggs of Louisiana for the passage of an antitrust legislative exemption for the merger. That legislation quietly sailed through Congress as a rider to an appropriations bill, and 3 weeks later, the establishment of the New Orleans Saints was announced to an unsuspecting world. And in 1970, the National Football League will feature the National Football Conference and the American Football Conference, featuring 3 different teams: the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cleveland Browns, and the Baltimore Colts, that had moved over from the old NFL, giving the new National Football League balance.